Hello, Watch fam, and welcome back to another episode of Chronopolis Radio with The Real Time Show. I am The Real Time Show's resident provocateur, David Boucher, and today I am delighted to have Marcus from Formex here with us on the show. Marcus, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm excellent. Thanks for having me, David.
It's great to have you here, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because we have a compressed timeline here, but Formex, I was refreshing myself on how the company came to be, and it's got a bit of an interesting history because it's one of those brands that if you're in Watt circles, but at the same time, it seems to be under the radar, and I get the impression that has to do with how it was started and how it was reborn, because that's a very important part of Formex's history as well. So tell us about that, please.
So we just had our 25-year anniversary last year, and it's not that we are running the company for 25 years, but it was originally two brothers in Switzerland who founded a company. They were developing watches for other companies, but they had that strong passion for motorsports, which I think reflects in your room too, because I saw a couple of cars before we hit record. So they wanted to combine their passion with their expertise, and they came up with Formex, which is a combination of two French words, forme extrême, extreme shape. And they came up with that case suspension system that imitates the suspension of a race car. And it kind of makes the same thing on the wrist. It makes the watch wear more comfortably on the wrist, but also protects the movement from shocks.
So that's one part. But as you said, it was two brothers. So you have a colleague named Raffaello, unfortunately couldn't be with us today. My understanding was that he actually helped relaunch the brand and brought you on for the journey. Is that how it happened?
Yeah. So Raphael is my best friend from college. We sat in the same row, obviously the last one, on the very first day. And since then, we just clicked. And when his family took over Formex about 10 years ago, I was basically employee number one or number two, because we know each other from pretty much every single case study at uni, and we knew we can work together, and we know we enjoy working together. And I think that's still a big part of Formex. We do what we like, and we enjoy doing it. And why is that so important that Raphael's family took over? Because his family has been in the watch industry for a while. His dad founded a company 40 years ago that provides components to several watch brands in Switzerland and international, and not as just a supplier, but really as an innovator. He looks at stuff and thinks, how can I make this better? And that's kind of how Formex works too. And that is reflected in many of our patented features and systems and the way we work with materials and use materials in different components of the watch.
So I want to go back on a couple points you said. I'm going to ask one question to then lead into another one. So the first question I want to present to you is that obviously, as you said, Formex has a lot of technical patents to it, and it was built around basically a shock absorption system. But the watches, as I understand it, and kind of as I look at the market, are actually very well priced. So I've always seen Formex as a very value-driven brand. Is that how you see it and how you want to present it to the market, or am I mistaken in how I'm seeing how Formex is presented?
It's always a fine line, right? With when you say you're a value brand, but you're still charging 2,000 Swiss francs. So value is subjective, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to make the best product possible with the features and the functions and the materials we want to have in a watch. I think the approach is not from a money standpoint where we say, oh, we want a watch that costs 2,000 Swiss franc because that sells. But we just start with a blank sheet of paper and we start drawing, and the price ends up where it ends up due to our margin calculation, which is very transparent. And I think the price being so competitive is because we are able to do a lot ourselves, just because of that vertical integration with the dial manufacturer that belongs to the family, case manufacturer and bracelet manufacturer. That's all done in-house, which just allows us to work much more independently, innovative. We don't have to pick up the phone and call someone. We can just walk over and say, hey, I got this idea. Let's work on this together.
So that was actually my next question was in a watch space that is becoming ever more crowded, especially in the, we'll call it 1,000 to 5,000 Swiss franc or euro range. I was going to ask you, how does Formex stay competitive and how do you stand out? But it sounds like one of the aspects that you have is that you're very Swiss made to an extent that other brands might not be.
I mean, that's one point, and I continue to believe that the Swiss made is something that's appreciated around the world. But we can say it because we really do it. I'm the only guy not being in Switzerland. I'm based in the United States, and that's for personal reasons. And I very much enjoy every time I go back home. And I say home because that's where I'm from. My family is, I mean, my parents and my brother and my nephew, nieces, they are all in Switzerland, and obviously my best friends and colleagues from work. Um, but everything happens in Switzerland. That's absolutely correct. Um, but I think that's not our like main competitive edge. I think it's really that vertical integration that everything happens as a whole. Um, we 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 can be innovative because we have the access to the engineers and the prototyping and the machines and the different materials and the knowledge that comes with the material. Uh, Look at just our latest innovation, the Essence Ceramica. It's that the Essence is really a journey, and it still strikes me that Raphael came up with that design, and it was originally a Kickstarter, right? It was a Kickstarter in '43 because you have to remember Formex comes from sizes of 48 millimeters. Those are big, chunky watches, and that was the trend back then, right? So when Raphael came up with the Essence, 43 already felt pretty small. And the Essence is still the same Essence as it was. When was that? 6, 7 years ago, with minor adjustments. Really where we felt like, okay, this we can even do better, or maybe, oh, this is what we hear from customers, and that's another thing, right? We are right where the customer is. We go to pretty much every watch show there is. We also try to be in more retail stores because we know how important it is to be able to physically try on the watch. We don't have to hide the watch because we wouldn't be convinced about its finishing and quality and how it looks and feels. So that's something we're working on, that more and more people are able to try on a watch before they can buy as well.
So you mentioned you were very active at watch shows, but Chronopolis is a bit different because it is, call it the new kid on the block, essentially. So you have other options during that time, during that week. It's going to be, I don't envy certain people in the watch media because they're going to be bouncing around from place to place. As a brand, though, there's obviously a cost to all of this to attend, depending on what show you go to. So I'm always very curious to hear from smaller brands, given that your marketing budget is probably limited, that consumers' attention is limited as well. What generally are you kind of running in your mind as far as cost benefit in terms of attending these shows? And then what made you land on Chronopolis for this year specifically?
I think Chronopolis is a bit of a special show for us. All other shows are really customer focused. So really the end customer is coming to the shows when you're talking about a wind-up show, intersect shows where Formex is part of the organizers. That's that, and their calculation is pretty easy. We want to cover the booth, we want to cover the travel cost, and that's it. We don't even calculate our own time because it's mostly fun as well for us too. So as long as that adds up, it's a success for us because all the people who get to try on the watch, that's down the line, where there could be a potential sale happening. we fully understand that, for someone who doesn't know Formex yet or hasn't tried on a Formex yet, and all the other brands that are, you know, uh, mostly not visible in window shops, it is quite a decision to make. It's not $100, $200. It's several $1,000s, and that's a decision that has to be researched. And most of the time, a watch show is somewhere in the middle, if not in the end of that decision process. Because when I see people coming to my booth, most of the time they've seen some sort of a YouTube video. Maybe they have a friend who has or owns one and showed it to them. So coming back to Chronopolis, that's a bit of a different show because it's happening during that big week in Geneva, right? Where everything that has a name and a rank, both as brand but also as influencer, as media, is just there. So I remember when there was still Basel World, Rafael and I, we were just kind of like, you know, guerrilla marketing style, just going there in a hotel lobby and trying to meet those journalists, hogging a table and just try to order coffee to keep the table. So that's been a while ago, and luckily we do have some budget by now to be part of something where also is more representable to who we are today. And we felt like Chronopolis is the ideal place because you look left and right, who is at Chronopolis, and it's really like-minded brands who kind of develop from that micro space a bit more towards the indie space. They all are, sooner or later in different retail stores and local partners, because they all know, as we do, the physical try-on experience is just there's nothing to it, right? Especially in today's world where everything is more and more AI, you want that real touch with a real mechanical watch. And that's obviously one of the reasons why we're there, that we are meeting our existing retail partners, but also are talking with new ones. And we feel like in a space with like-minded brands, that's the ideal spot for Formex to be.
It doesn't sound like the competition, if we can call it that, scares you, because the space, as I said earlier, a lot more brands are coming in because the barrier to entry is low. And I have to be a little careful saying that because Formex makes their watches in Switzerland in large part. The barrier is low because someone else might want to cut more corners, but the end result is still a watch, right? So the space is very competitive. Uh, it doesn't sound like that has prevented you from growing your brand. I mean, do you find that the market as a whole growing has created those additional opportunities for you since you took over the company, basically?
Not sure if the market as a whole is growing. I think there is definitely parts of that. I feel a lot of young people are interested in, doing their research and finding, okay, what I'm getting here as a product, and it's not what everyone else, every other of my work colleagues wear. I feel like more and more people get into, alternative brands other than just the mainstream or what you usually see in ads and in the glossy papers and in the window shops. I think it's just because there is more information and more interest also to be different. Brands like us seem to thrive, and I think retail partners also get a sense of that because maybe there's someone walking in with a traditional brand and asks, hey, look, I've been to this show, or I have this friend who showed me like this fine adjustment system, and I've never seen that on any of the watches that you showed me. And maybe that's where a conversation starts, and maybe also a physical retailer starts to think, oh, maybe I should have something like this as an alternative. I'm not saying a retail partner gets rich by having Formex in their store, but it's a great alternative of offering something special to your customer that maybe not every other retail store has. And I think that's very similar to our customer. when you have everything else, maybe a Formex or a Studio Underdog or an Awake is a nice change to your collection, and also is a great conversation starter as well.
No, absolutely. And I think those are very interesting names to pick because they're all very different from each other. So whereas Studio Underdog, it might be kind of the quirky artist that wears one. Awake is the person who might have some ties back to Vietnam. And then Formex, I'm an engineer. And when you talk things like suspension systems and bracelet adjusts, that really gets me going as well. It very much seems like it's for the technical driven person. And to your point, I think there's something for everyone. And that brings me to the question, I guess, suppose we're going to wrap up on, is let's talk products. So the Real Time Show, we love having scoops. This is obviously going to air after the show has started. So we would love to hear what you'll be presenting at the show, if there's any model you want to highlight in particular. And certainly if you have anything new, we would love to hear about that as well.
So we will have the entire range of Formex watches available for try on. We just presented a new watch in our Reef collection. We're also working with forged carbon now for the Reef, which was exclusive to the Leggera, the Essence Leggera line. So definitely an eye catcher there. The watch looks great on pictures, but really has to be seen in person. So whoever can make it to Chronopolis, that's the first time to explore that watch for the first time in person. And obviously we're working on new stuff, but nothing I could publicly say here on the podcast, because otherwise Raphael will cut my head off. But definitely worth to see us at the booth and maybe just ask us, hey, what's going on? What are you working on? And maybe we have something to show.
So I take it that both you and Raphael and your colleagues will be at the show?
Yes. It will be
Perfect.
Raphael, myself, Sabrina. We will have our videographer a day or two with us. It is kind of home, right? Because we are in Switzerland. We are based in Biel, which is just two hours away from Geneva. And whenever I talk to journalists and retail partners, I really invite them to our home. And it's great to see them and have them there.
Fantastic. No, that is definitely the advantage of actually being able to go to the show, is that you can meet the brands. And in the case of smaller brands like Formex, you can actually meet the people that are making these brands happen, which is fantastic. I will be there. So Marcus, I will make sure and stop by and say hello since we've now been introduced. Everyone else, if you are only able to listen, please do keep tuning in. We've got many more episodes of Chronopolis Radio coming along. And as always, we want to thank you so much for choosing to spend your time here with us. Take care and keep on ticking.